stop the short time wasted. You should know by now. Yeah, he's stuck in a different zone. Stuck in a different zone. Oh, yeah. 'Cause I don't really want you. I don't really want you. I want you. No way. Yeah. I'm bored. Put all the blame on boredom. Just blame it on boredom. Put all the blame on boredom.
Nothing else sounds as good as
WEFM, the clean, fresh sound.
WhatsApp us or call us at 457-9997. Rise and shine. Let's get ready to take on the day. Activated Mornings on WEFM 99.9 is on now.
Tuesday morning here in SVG. It's Activated Mornings with Roleza and Dianna on the Clean Fresh Sound WEFM. Good morning to everyone that is listening to us at this time. You are tuned into the right station. This is the best place to be at this time of the morning because you know we have nothing but vibes for you. Already we have on the line PeeJohn, who is going to give us his usual morning commentary. So PeeJohn, good morning. Over to you.
Good morning, Dianna. Good morning, Roleza. This is my question. Does PM Ralph Gonsalves intimidate media workers in St. Vincent and the Grenadines? Now, the Prime Minister, Dr. Ralph Gonsalves, held a press conference yesterday as Monday 12 May 2025. As we have come to expect from the Prime Minister, this briefing was quite lengthy. From what I was able to discern, among other issues, he dealt extensively with his government's position on the Citizen by Investment Program, CBI. At the end of his presentation, only 2 journalists had questions for the Prime Minister. Clive Compton from the API and Robertson Henry from the Searchlight. Nothing came from any of the other media workers that were likely present and or locked down. Are media workers intimidated by the Prime Minister? Now, there's a widely held perception, particularly among his critics, that is, critics of the Prime Minister, and some independent journalists, that Prime Minister Ralph Gonsalves has a history of dominating or pressuring the Vincentian media environment. This perception is shaped by a number of factors. One, he tends to be aggressive in his public responses. He is known for his sharp rhetoric and sometimes confrontational tone when addressing criticism from the media. This has led to accusations that he discourages dissent or critical reporting. Secondly, the tendency to file or threaten to file defamation lawsuits. Over the years, Gonsalves has pursued or threatened to pursue legal action against media figures for defamation, which some interpret as a strategy to silence and or intimidate journalists. Thirdly, he has control of the state media. The government, as led by Ralph Gonsalves, maintains strong influence over the state-run media, which tends to present positive stories favorable to the administration. This creates an uneven media landscape in the view of some people. And finally, it has a chilling effect. As a result of these dynamics, some journalists and other outlets may practice self-censorship, avoiding controversial topics or government criticism out of fear of a backlash. Now, all that said, there are still some independent journalists and platforms in St. Vincent and the Grenadines that speak out critically, though they often face significant challenges. Whether or not one sees Gonsalves as intimidating the media, it depends on one's political perspective. But it is fair to say that his relationship with the press tend to be contentious and polarizing. And that is my rant for the day. Thank you very much.
Thank you, PeeJohn. Enjoy the rest of your day. Once again, let me say good morning to all of the listeners of WEFM, to the Spanish listeners, buenos dias, to the French, bonjour, to the Garifuna, Buiti Binafia, to the, is it Swahili or what was the nationality for people from, what do you call them? Swahilians? I don't know. Joshua, help me out there. But to those persons who speak Swahili, Siku Jema and aloha. Aloha to the Hawaiians. And that's all I know. That's it for today. But good morning to all of the listeners of WEFM. This is Activated Mornings with Roleza and Dianna. You just heard from PeeJohn, who brought his commentary asking the question, does the Prime Minister intimidate media workers in SVG? And I just want to go straight. Oh, wait, by the way, good morning to you, Roleza.
All right. Good morning to you, Dianna. Good morning to SVG. Good morning, region. Good morning, folks internationally. All right. Hope that you all are doing just fine. I noticed that the weather seems to be clearing up today. Yesterday, I thought the weather thought that we were already past June 1st. So, yeah. All right. It would rain significantly yesterday and also on Sunday. But today, we're seeing clear enough skies. There still seems to be a bit of haze. I don't like when it's hazy because it doesn't feel like I'm living truly in the tropics, right? I want to see clear skies. I want to be able to see as far as Grenada. I'm joking with the Grenada part, right? But I want to see several of the Grenadine islands. But yeah, when we have the haze like this, I'm not sure if it's Saharan dust, but when we have the haze like this, we don't get to see the islands as clear and the place doesn't look as beautiful. But nonetheless, yeah, that's the thing about living in the Caribbean. It's a rain when come and sun going shine. Yep. We pick we poison, right? Whichever day we just pick we poison. Now we proceed there. All right. So yes, good morning to everybody.
And the instrumental just ended right there. All right. So to get into PeeJohn's rant, does the Prime Minister intimidate media workers in SVG? I cannot answer that question with a yes or a no. PeeJohn did raise several points as it relates to his presentation and on certain topics and his interaction with the media at times. I mean, some of those things, I think some of us could say that we have definitely noticed. I do know that some persons do avoid speaking on certain topics or out of whatever fear or whatever, what have you. But I also recognize that people still do their reporting. So if there is some sort of intimidation, I wouldn't say that everybody to some extent may or may not be intimidated, because I do recognize that media houses still do present on stories. We see positive stories, we see negative stories from some persons, we see stories of all types regularly, right? So that is what I gotta say, and I'm gonna head straight over to Roleza.
All right. So does the PM intimidate media workers in SVG? I am not sure if to use the word intimidate in a sense, or maybe there are some media workers who, when they show up at these press conferences, believe that the tone of voice that the PM is going to use is going to be a condescending one, right? There are times when I have seen, and even with PeeJohn in the past, and I made reference to it before, and I'll just make reference to it again. There wasn't an incident, a time when the PeeJohn was here on Issue at Hand, here at WEFM on the Issue at Hand program. But this was several years ago, and PeeJohn asked a question, posed a question to the PM, and I was a little bit younger at the time, and I could recognize that PeeJohn was just asking a question that many persons on the ground were asking, right? As a lay person, PeeJohn put the question towards the PM. And the way in which the PM spoke to PeeJohn almost came across as if he was speaking to a little boy, right? And it just really ticks me off. And this is the thing. If we have a PM who is in power, if you have any public official, you should be able to accept questions from anybody. All right. You should be able to. Yes, I know that there are times when even for all of us, a slight irritation might come out in the way in which we speak to persons, or, maybe in the annoyance of the question or whatever the case might be. But when you are a public figure, you do have to be able to answer questions that might not be favorable, that might not put you in a positive light, that might be questions that people on the ground that they are asking. And I find that there are many times when media workers or persons in general, they are afraid to ask questions because of the way in which the response or the type of response that's going to be given to them, right? There might be media workers at this point in time who might think that it doesn't make sense attending these press conferences because the question that I'm going to ask, I mean, if we have to be fair, we know the PM, there are times when you ask a direct question and you get a thesis, right? And the thing of it is that, yes, I know that there are times when he says that he's putting things into perspective, you're giving the history of certain things, but there are also times where we don't need all of that, right? We just want to be able to, if I ask you a question, for the most part, it's a yes or no. You can give the yes or no response, give a little addition, but you don't necessarily need the long pants version of the answer, all right? So I think that there are times when there are many media officials who may not be attending because they feel that, they're not going to get the direct answer. Or even there are times, and I actually made a comment about this when I was looking at the last session of Parliament, when I thought that maybe API needs to keep up the question that was posed to the government side whenever they're answering, because there are times when they start to answer the questions, I completely forget what the question was. All right. And I'm not saying that not to provide a backstory. I'm not saying not to provide some supplementary information, but there are times when it just goes on for so long that I just lose essence of what the initial question was, right? I do think that there are several media workers, and I suppose maybe the head of this at this time is somebody like Kenton, who does try to poke questions. He does try to do the investigative journalism, which is not what we see a lot here of. We don't have a lot of the journalists here who actually try to go and investigate. What we see is a lot of them just reporting what they hear at the press conferences without actually asking questions, without actually doing the background research, without actually getting information that's presented to them and trying to find information which either supports or if you're not supporting what you're doing, you are not so much contradicting, but again, posing questions that may not be, you're not just wanting to accept things on the surface level. And I think that is what is the problem that many of us or many persons do not want to do. You are afraid to ask questions. And I don't know why in a society we're afraid to ask questions, right? So I see that happening a lot. What I can also say is that when you have persons such as, and I'm using Kenton as another example, because many times, Martin Maxman, many times there are persons who look at stories that Kenton would carry, look at stories that Kenton would do, and they would say that he is against the government. Now, is it necessarily a case where he's against the government, or he's not necessarily accepting everything as being wholesale as presented by persons out there who are supporters of the party? All right. So I think that what if we are actually going to be fair, we need to realize that you have to have both sides of a discussion or an argument or a policy that is put forward. You need to see both sides of it, and you're not necessarily, or you should not expect or accept that everything is supposed to be in favor of the government. And yeah, so to answer the question, yes, I do believe that the PM does intimidate media workers, right? And the instrument again. All right.
All right, so there you have it, our thoughts on the topic that was raised this morning, and I think that is going to be it for us for now. Remember, we have another commentary section at 7:45. It's 7:33. In just about a minute, we
see somebody calling. You want to take it for 50 seconds? Yeah. All right, Connie, you have 50 seconds, like legit 50 seconds. Good morning.
Intimidation is a serious word to use. Because we don't jail journalists, we don't kill them and all them kind of things.
Yeah, no, but you don't have to jail, or you don't have to thing in that context. You could intimidate
Okay,
me
well,
to a
let me
point
talk
where I don't want to ask a question again.
Yes, but then see what happened? The journalists are never asking the question, mostly asking political question. Question to put the government on the back foot. I want to hear exactly what they want to hear.
But what is
government has
so
to
wrong with
itself.
challenging things that you see that you question? What is so wrong with that? Aren't we supposed to be open and transparent?
Yes, well, the government open and transparent, they will say, you have to answer the question and defend the government at the same time. So therefore, that's how we have to look at this. Because most of the question asked to the government, it's to the government to look small. And sometimes it make up question, question that put in a way to twist things. You understand?
I hear you.
To suit
I hear you.
the political
All right.
agenda.
All right, I hear you.
The government have to do what they have to do all over the world. I don't know if you listen to other journalists all over the world.
Okay. All right. I hear you, caller. I hear you. All right.
Okay.
All right. Have a good one.
And we are going to head straight into our traffic talk. It is 7:35.
WEFM.